Certainly. Here's a 1,000-word version of the story, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Bierce, retold and restructured into a more comprehensive narrative. An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. The sun was setting in the quiet southern landscape, casting long shadows over the water below Owl Creek Bridge. Its orange glow illuminated the peaceful countryside, where only the sound of the rustling leaves disturbed the stillness. However, in this tranquil setting, there was a scene of tension and impending tragedy. Peyton Farquhar stood on the bridge, hands bound behind his back, a noose tight around his neck, and the other end hanging from the bridge's beam. A Union soldier had come earlier, warning him about the military authorities being on high alert in the area. He had mentioned that Owl Creek Bridge, a key strategic point for controlling access to the nearby town, had been heavily guarded by the Union Army. Peyton, an ardent Southern supporter, had fallen into the trap of a lie and was now paying the price. As Peyton Farquhar stood helpless, gazing at the deep waters below, his mind began to wander, retreating into memories and fantasies. He could feel the weight of the rope as it squeezed tighter around his throat. Yet, instead of panic, a strange sense of calm washed over him. His thoughts shifted to his wife and children, their faces forever etched in his memory. The sharp, formal orders of the soldier at the foot of the bridge echoed in his ears, yet it was as though they were fading into the background as his mind played tricks on him. He recalled, vividly, the moment he had been tricked into this trap. It was earlier in the day, when he had been approached by a Union scout disguised as a Confederate soldier. The scout had spoken of the strategic value of the bridge and told him how it could be burned, thereby halting Union troop movement. The idea had ignited a spark of excitement in Farquhar's heart. If only he could sabotage the bridge, he would become a hero to his fellow Southerners. The scout had been convincing, and with words that echoed the desires of his heart, he had led Peyton to believe that the mission was simple. A group of Union soldiers would be stationed at the bridge, and if Peyton could cross the creek and set the structure on fire, he would surely deal a significant blow to the advancing Union forces. Driven by a sense of duty, far stronger than the fear of death, Farquhar had decided to act. But now, as he stood at the edge of the bridge with the noose around his neck, reality began to set in. He had been deceived. The Union soldiers had anticipated his plan, waiting for him to take the bait. The trap had been sprung, and he was the prey. As the soldier adjusted the rope, Peyton could feel the cold, hard truth weighing down on him. His fate was sealed. But then, a remarkable thing happened. Just as the signal to release him came, a flash of thought flickered in Peyton's mind. Perhaps he could escape. His mind, desperate and frenzied, began to visualize an improbable scenario in which he broke free. The mechanism of the bridge, the tension in the rope, the men standing at a distance. All of it appeared to him as though it could be manipulated. In this moment, time seemed to stretch, and reality bent to his will. He imagined the rope breaking, his hands slipping free, his body plunging into the creek below. Once submerged, he could swim to the surface, escape to the nearby woods, and evade capture. A sense of hope blossomed in his chest. He clenched his teeth, eyes wide with the fire of survival. The world around him blurred, the sounds of the soldiers fading into the background as the water below became more vivid. The rope, tight and unforgiving, was his only obstacle now. With every fiber of his being, Peyton focused on the possibility of escape. His arms strained, his body wriggled in the restraints, and his thoughts raced faster than his pulse. Could he pull this off? Suddenly, as though propelled by an unseen force, his body jerked forward, and the rope loosened for an instant. He had broken free. With all his strength, he propelled himself into the water, the cold shock of the creek invigorating him. He swam swiftly, his legs kicking with desperation as the current guided him away from the bridge. The soldiers were still at the bridge, their backs turned. They were too far behind to notice the change, too slow to act. Farquhar's heart raced as he moved further downstream, breathless but determined. His mind now fixated on reaching the forest, hiding there until he could regain his strength. Perhaps he would escape after all, live to fight another day, and fulfill the mission he had set out to complete. As the minutes passed, The familiar landscape faded into a blur of green and brown. The trees swayed gently in the wind, their branches reaching out toward him. His body was exhausted, but the sheer will to survive kept him going. Farquhar swam on, eyeing